We've done a lot of reviews about the 1-year risk comparison between an Advantage plan cost and a supplement plan cost with a bunch of different whiteboard comparisons. But one of our viewers, Just Buzz, suggested looking at this same comparison over 30 years. Now, 30 years is a lot, so we're actually going to do just 20 years, which is closer to the average lifespan and life expectancy of an American. And there are going to be a lot of assumptions in this seemingly impossible video, but we're going to give it a go. Okay, we're going to be looking at a supplement plan G, a high deductible plan G, and a typical $0 premium Advantage plan. Now, the average supplement plan G premium nationally right now is $130 per person per month for a 65-year-old. This is an average. There are states where they start at $300 per month. Now, the growth rates that we have seen in our 5 surrounding states sits at between 6 and 8% every year for these plans. In most cases, these are attained age plans where you get a little bit of a bump every year when you reach a new age on your birthday, which is around 3% where we are, and another bump annually that will account for inflation and rising healthcare costs, which is around the 4% range. Now, keep in mind that there are years where it is 0 and there are years where it's 10 to 12%. So we get our monthly premium cost, assuming you started Medicare at 65, and then your annual cost for the Plan G premiums. Next, we have the Part B deductible. With a Plan G, you're responsible for the Part B deductible first before Medicare or your supplement plan kick in. Deductibles have grown by an average of about 6% over the past 20 years, and we'll keep that as the growth rate here. We're also going to assume that every third year you have something catastrophic happen with very high hospital and medical costs. I think this is being very aggressive, and that's what you see with these totals here. Every 3 years, you are hitting your Plan G deductible. Another thing to keep in mind is Part D prescription drug coverage. Most of those on a supplement plan are getting a drug plan as well. It is separate and it is standalone where you have your own premiums. Now, this one is really hard to gauge because just this past year from 2023 to 2024, the average Part D premium amount went up by about 76%, from $31.50 as the average to $55.50. With the changes coming to Part D in 2025, I would imagine that this will go up again. So I feel like I'm being a little too generous here with just a 6% increase per year. But again, you can mess with these numbers as you like. Next to that, we have the Part D annual premium costs. Finally, our last columns are going to be the Part B premiums. These are income dependent, so those on higher incomes will have higher numbers. Those with low incomes, as in Medicaid, may have lower numbers, but most people have the base premium. Since Medicare started, the average increase has been 7% per year. The last 20 years, it's about 5.6%. So I'm going to put this at a 6% growth rate. And as we go to the bottom here, over the course of 20 years, we are looking at a total cost across all these columns at $183,853.13. We can call that $184,000 over 20 years with a supplement plan G. A plan that has become a little bit more popular is the high deductible plan G. So let's look at those numbers. High deductible plan G has a lower monthly premium, but there is that higher deductible to worry about in a bad year. Again, we're going to assume that you have a catastrophic year every third year to hit that deductible, and we still have Part D premiums. The total cost with a high deductible plan G is $187,684.05. We'll call it $188,000 over 20 years. I'll compare all of these here in a minute. The last option is the Advantage plan. $0 premiums are most prevalent, giving us premium costs of $0. Advantage plans have an out-of-pocket maximum. Now, this is interesting because since 2017, so for the past 7 years, the trend on maximum out-of-pockets have actually decreased. They are trending downward, but we're going to put it at a 3% increase each year on those out-of-pocket max numbers, which is probably unfair to the Advantage plan, but we're going to do it anyway. Between 3 and 5% of people actually hit their out-of-pocket maximum, but we're going to stick with the hitting your out-of-pocket max every 3 years concept that we've had in the other two. Most Advantage plans have Part D included with them at no extra cost, with no premium, but you still have those Part B premiums. The total for the Advantage plan is $131,085.84. We'll call it $131,000. Okay, let's pull up the comparison. We have this ordered from the lowest overall cost to the highest. The Advantage plan total cost is about $56,600 less than the high deductible plan G and about $52,800 less than supplement plan G. Plan G is about $4,000 less than the high deductible G option. Okay, let's move on to 5 important considerations with this and how to approach this decision yourself. First, we're being pretty generous to regular G, high deductible G, and Part D. With regular G, you are much more likely to need to pay that Part B deductible much more often than every third year because it is so low, you could hit it with one doctor visit, and you're needing to pay that first for any Part B expense before original Medicare or your supplement plan start. So having this amount every year is much more common for most people. Same story with the high deductible Plan G, but probably more dramatic. Years of essentially zero are not likely. In the 0 years, you'll have some form of that deductible that you're paying. And I want to pause here and just share our experience with high deductible Plan G. A lot of people are attracted to the high deductible Plan G, and it is great for the right person. But the more years you have something go wrong, the more dramatic the difference is between regular G and high deductible G, meaning regular Plan G will have more savings to you than the high deductible Plan G. So we have a lot of people that have been on a high deductible G and they love it because they don't have those high premiums. We've also seen people who get on it knowing about the high deductible, but once those bills start coming in, they get pretty frustrated with the costs and they want to switch to a regular G or a Plan N. And depending on where you live, this isn't always easy. So just something to keep in mind. High deductible G is great, but it does have its downsides. With Part D, we already mentioned this, but that growth rate is quite conservative. We expect a sizable jump again in 2025 because of the changes coming to the Part D program. So anything higher than the 6% growth rate would skew these numbers even more in favor of the Advantage plans that have that Part D included at no extra premium. Also, the reality of an Advantage plan, like the Plan G, is that every year you'll have some form of copays rather than years of zero, and then hitting the max out-of-pocket every 3 years. Hitting the max out-of-pocket every 3 years is very aggressive unless you have diabetes, cancer, or other really expensive conditions. So more realistically, these costs are going to be spread out over the years and probably not that high. If you do have a chronic condition though, and you are hitting that out-of-pocket maximum every year, this plan gets to be more costly. Now, the second important consideration, these numbers do not include actual drug costs. It includes the premiums to have the Part D plan, but you will have drug costs with separate deductibles, copays, and coinsurance amounts. Now, the good news around this is that drug coverage works essentially the same for the purposes of this analysis between a standalone drug plan and the Part D plan included in Advantage plans. The difference being paying to have it with the standalone route and not needing to pay premiums to have it on the Advantage plan route. Okay, the third consideration is where you live matters. And I mentioned this all the way at the beginning, but the average premiums, increases, and max out-of-pocket numbers will change a lot depending on where you live. In some areas, Plan G starts at $300 a month instead of the $130 that we used in this video. In some areas, there are Advantage plans with a $500 maximum out-of-pocket, or in other areas of over $8,000 as the max out-of-pocket. So where you live matters. Two more important considerations, this next one actually being a huge deal, and that is HSA dollars matter. Let's actually look at this tab that I built here. You are not allowed to use HSA dollars to pay your supplement plan premiums. You are allowed to use your HSA dollars to pay for the deductibles, Part D premiums, and Advantage plan copays and coinsurance. Remember, once you go on Social Security, Part B is coming out of your Social Security check. So when we look at the money that you need to have on hand to pay for this, about $84,000 is coming from your Social Security check. For regular Plan G, you can use your HSA to pay for the Part D premiums and the small deductibles, totaling about $30,000, but you need to have the dollars available to take care of the $70,000 you're looking at in premiums over the course of those 20 years. High deductible G is a little different. Part B premiums are the same, about $38,000 in premiums that you cannot use your HSA dollars for, and you could use your HSA for the $66,000 that are made up of your high deductibles and your Part D premiums. Lastly, the Advantage plan. The Part B premiums are still coming out of your Social Security checks, and then all of your expenses can be paid for with an HSA. All of your coinsurance, all of your copays can be paid for with your HSA dollars. This comes out to be about $47,000. And for all of these numbers, for you couples out there, you need to double them. So financially, with an Advantage plan in this totally made up scenario, the couple would need about $100,000 in the HSA and they would be set for life. We do see this happen, and if not $100,000, we still see quite sizable HSAs at this point in the $60,000 to $70,000 range. Now, high deductible G, the couple would need to have almost $80,000 just for the premiums and another $130,000 in an HSA or other places to cover. And with regular Plan G, the couple would need closer to $140,000 for premiums and about $60,000 in their HSA or other accounts. Okay, the last important consideration, cost isn't everything. For some people, it is, period. It is all about the dollars. For others, freedom to choose your doctors, the peace of mind knowing that something isn't going to be denied, The freedom that comes with original Medicare with one of the supplement plans versus the managed care option of the Advantage plans, for some people that outweighs the cost differences. So this is by no means me saying go with one of these plans over the other. For many people who can afford the supplement plans, this is what they want. They want that freedom. They want that flexibility. For others, they don't, and that's okay. All right, check out this video right over here for more Medicare fun, and I will see you over there.